Good evening, friends. Drew here on a beautiful day in New London, Pennsylvania, making some progress on the exterior that we're working on here, getting some things done. Took a tour through the inside, and I want to show you a couple pictures of the interior trim that the guys have started working on in there. We've got some window sills in place, and rather than just, a lot of the guys will just cut those off at a slight angle and put them in. We're actually taking and mitering those corners and putting those on there so you get that full edge detail all the way across, and then returning that into the wall. We're also cutting returns on the aprons that are going underneath the window sills, and then of course putting the trim all the way around. We're doing a little bit of a mixed package on this home. We're going to have most of the first floor and select rooms on the second floor are going to be in the 3.5-inch beaded colonial casing, and then we're going to be doing the 2.5 or 2.25 on some of the other rooms. That just that size fits better in the decor of the room, or because of some of the things hanging on the wall, or for a number of different reasons where they decided to go with a smaller trim in certain select areas. We've got the detail done on the kitchen window, and what you'll notice here at the very top, we had to slice that piece, but the guys made it look like it was just totally built in, and came out phenomenal. Kudos to Michael for working on that and making that just look gorgeous. He's doing a phenomenal job throughout this whole thing on the inside. Down here at the base, we're going to wind up cutting the old piece of granite, and we're working with one of our solid surface companies to get that milled to the correct size and put back in there. So that's going to be happening at some point here down the road once we can get them to get that fabricated for us and back together. I'll show you some of the detail here on the, we'll start with the bay window, and you can see the foam backer rod that we've put in here, and then where our guys have added adhesive sealant all the way around on this window to help do the air sealing on the inside edge of these windows. And we've done that pretty much on every window in the house, and the purpose for that is twofold, both air and water infiltration. So a lot of what used to be done is people just set the window nailing flange into some sort of an adhesive goo on the outside of the house, and they put window tape on all four sides. And that method has been used by a lot of companies over the years, but about 10 years ago, the folks in the building science industry started coming up with a better way to do it. The guy who trained me said you never seal the bottom of anything because water always runs downhill, and you don't want to create a dam, you want to leave a way for it to get out. So this method makes a lot of sense to me. What we do is we set three sides of the window in goop, left, right, and top, and we leave the bottom open. And we make sure we wrap the Tyvek into those openings. And rather than stuffing them full of fiberglass insulation, the new method here is to install foam backer rod at the very back edge of that window installation, and then seal that with adhesive product. And we're going to do that on all four sides. That way, any water that ever gets past this window at any point in the future, it's going to wind up in that cavity on either side of the window, and it'll be able to run down to the bottom. Has a clear path to the bottom and can run out under that nail fin. And at some point, we'll show you the detail on the outside of the house where we actually take some aluminum and strip out, at least from the J-channel corners, and get the water that comes down on the outside onto the piece of siding below. But at the worst case scenario, it's going to wind up on top of the Tyvek and be able to run out down at the bottom of the. We've talked about nailing our window in. The house wrap runs into the opening. Once the house wrap's in the opening, then we're able to set the window into that with some adhesive sealant with this nailing flange on the left and right side and the top. The window gets set into that and then nailed. Then we take the window tape here, tape that over the nailing flange. Then we can set our J-channel and everything else. Most common, and we saw these on the video at the beginning of this project, everywhere we had water damage on this house was typically at the bottom of these J-channels where water had gotten down behind and had gotten behind the house wrap and had damaged the OSB. So part of the process in the new way that we're doing windows is to make sure that any water that comes out of this J-channel, we know this is a spot that rain's going to get driven in there by the wind. We want to make sure we give it a path to get out. So part of that is this aluminum flashing down here. We set this flashing up behind everything that's going on so that any water that comes down is going to wind up on top of this and out on top of the next piece of siding. So we're constantly moving that water out to the next layer. So you can see that kind of down in here where that's just going to have the opportunity to get into that channel, and it's either going to come out here at the edge or in the weep holes that are back there. Wall. So that we're air sealing on the inside, and by having the air seal, that prevents the wind from being able to blow through that window, which means it can't blow water into the interior of the house. There are some architects who will say there are two types of windows, those that leak and those that will leak. So we're trying to prevent that future challenge from popping up by doing this air sealing on the inside perimeter. It's also going to act as a moisture barrier to help ensure that if anything gets down there in the future, it's going to take a path to daylight and not into the house where it can cause damage. So there's a sill pan that we've put in there. We're using adhesive tape, and that goes down on the bottom. We've got the Tyvek house wrap on the sides, and all of that is tied together with the foam backer rod and the adhesive product. In this case, we're using 𝗂𝘀 on the inside to help ensure that no water is going to get in. So we're forcing everything to the outside both now and in the future, and that's given the client here an awful lot of peace of mind that we're kind of going through those extra steps. And the other piece is that we want to make sure that there's no drafts coming through. This house is located up on a hill, and there's a tremendous amount of wind that comes across the front lawn and just berates the whole front of this house. And by putting in some real high quality windows and then going through some of these extra steps with the air sealing, we're going to help ensure that they're not going to get any drafts to these new windows. We're hoping it's going to actually improve their energy bills, but more importantly, it's going to improve their comfort, where they're not getting those drafts coming across the windows. They're not getting the temperature changes that they used to get with the old windows. There was a little bit of prep work today. We had a couple conversations back and forth between our different trades and making sure that the stone guys are coordinating with the siding guys and that everything is going according to plan. And so I'll take you up and show you where we started on the back of the house, and then I'll explain how we went up out front. Let's go for a walk. Here we go. All right, so we're back here in the back corner of the house. And we told you on some of the other videos that this is the area that we were going to be starting in back here in this corner, and we were going to work around the house clockwise and make our final connections back here on this side. And so the first question that was asked was, okay, what are the stone guys doing on the corner, and how is that going to tie in to what's going on with the siding? And so the answer, which we already knew this part, was that this has to be back 1 3/4 inches so that the stone can wrap and be a nice, real pretty face, so that when you're looking at the house from the driveway side, you know, you see a nice finished product with the stone complete. And so it's going to end here. So, okay, how do we do that? Great, we figured out where this goes. Now the question is, okay, how do we figure out where to cut the corner post so that we have a right spot for the stone height over to here? Well, that means we got to figure out where the stone is on the front of the house, and we have to transfer that as a level line all the way around to the back side of the house and figure out where that's going to wind up. So let's take a walk around the front, and we'll show you how we start figuring that out. All right, so out here in front of the house, we have the stoop, and I'll show you over on the other side so you can get a little bit better picture. So what we're going to do is we have this cement stoop here, and that's going to be the level of the siding. So the siding's going to come off the porch, and it's going to continue around the house at that point. We showed you last week the AZEK block getting put in for the plumbing. And so this is just kind of tacked here temporarily. But the siding is going to be above this. So this is going to be down in the field of the stone, and we wanted to get that packed out and correct and ready for those guys. Ahead of time, we got our ice and water shield down in through here, all the way across to help protect the foundation when the block goes in. And so we know where the siding line is going to come across here. So we started doing the same thing over on the other side. And the guys start bending the aluminum, and we've got a beautiful detail here that's going to help shed water that comes down, make sure it gets on the foundation, on the cement pad here, gets moved away from the wall, and just really looks nice. And when there's a piece of J-channel, it's going to go on top of that. That's going to clean up just beautifully. So we start transferring this line around and figuring out where we need to be on the back of the house. Well, that's great. So that we start with starter strip at the bottom or J-channel at the bottom. And where is that going to leave us when we go to transition? The top of these reverse gables, maybe we'll keep it a surprise, maybe I've already told you, I don't remember. There's going to be a change in color at the top of these gutters, at the top of that gutter line going into the reverse gable. The top of the reverse gable is going to be a different color. We've got the gray going on the bottom, and we'll save that as a surprise for later. We're also going to be doing this center, top to bottom, in an accent color. And so we want to make sure that that line falls somewhere intelligent when we come up. And so we got to take that into account as we figure out where our starting point is, and are we starting with a full piece of siding or a partial piece of siding? So we've got our corner posts that are going on, and these are fairly substantial. Let me show you one of these. This is a 𝗂𝘀𝘀 product. And so there's 4 sections. It's 2 pieces of siding per, and very substantial what they've done here. You've got these beautiful water channels in there, and then you've got those reinforcing corners down to the bottom, and they've also got them in that side as well. So there's lots of reinforcement. These are real thick, heavy-duty panels, and customers said with the way the wind used to blow that the whole house would rattle and the siding would rattle. And I think with these, we're both pretty convinced that that's not going to happen. They have a beautiful interlocking tab here on the top, so as we splice these together, as one sits on top, those are designed to nest such that any water that comes down that post is going to stay on the outside of things and not be allowed to get down behind the ice and water shield. So that's a nice little product that's been put together, and it's going on with this siding, with the cedar shake siding that's going on. So we start figuring out, okay, where do we end up here? Do we want to make sure we don't have some tiny little sliver that's going to be left on that piece? And we got to take that into account. And then we have to look at some of the other places in the house. Let's walk around the other side. So this is the new bay window that's in, and we've got everything set up here, prep for that. We want to make sure as that siding comes around that it's hitting a somewhat logical location on this deck. You know, we've got so many different levels of where things are going to be. We got to make sure that that's going to be correct. And, you know, hopefully we're not winding up in stupid little sliver situations up here against the header. And then, of course, the deck on the back of the house. You remember we showed you in a prior video, we were installing this ledge board for the future deck that's going on. You know, how thick are the deck boards going to be? What's that height going to be? Where does that J-channel need to rest so that the customer has room to come back later and put those deck boards on and have them be against the house and have the J-channel be on top? So there's lots of thinking, figuring out. And it's not to say that you have to do this when you're installing siding, but this is a very thick, durable piece of material. This is not a flimsy piece of siding. It's got some rigidity to it because of all the extra texture that's built into it. So it's not something that you're going to be able to just take apart later to section something in. It's going to be a much tighter product. It's not going to be able to pull apart the way you can pull apart a piece of Dutch slab or a piece of clapboard siding, double 4, double 4.5, double 5. Even Carolina beaded you can get apart. This stuff, not something I would want to try to get apart and retrofit later down the road. So we're taking into account a lot of those different pieces, mostly the stone, worrying about that and thinking about the transition to the gutters and then any of the other factors. There's no way on a project this size you're ever going to come up with the perfect number, the perfect starting point. If you've ever done hardwood flooring or vinyl plank flooring, you know that you want to measure across the room and you want to make sure you don't start with a piece too small or end with a piece too small. It's an easy calculation. You've got one set of measurements to deal with. Here we've got 9 or 10 points around the house that we're trying to take into account, focusing on the areas that are going to be most visible first and making sure that we're planning as best we can to take into consideration as many of those as we can. Let me take you inside to one of the bathrooms where we've got shower right up against the trim, and we'll show you how our guys kind of compensated for this. And again, in an example like this window that we're looking at, there's no perfect way to do this because of how the window is positioned with the shower. It came that way from the builder. We're not reframing the opening. We're not moving the window. So how do we trim this out and make it look nice? And our guys were able to take about 1/8 inch off this right-hand side where the trim was going to go and then adjust the windowsill accordingly. And it's not like anyone's ever going to be staring at this or scrutinizing this. So how do you make it the best that you can make it? And try to hide the imperfections as best you can with the carpentry work. And so that is part of the trick to this profession is knowing the right ways to be able to do things that you sort of hide the imperfections that if you weren't told about them, would you have noticed? And does it look normal to you unless somebody points out to you that it's not? So as I was explaining, it's been a bit of a process today, making sure that we've taken all these different factors into account. The siding was on the back of the house a little bit and back off again, and then on and back off, and we came up to the front and started working on this. We've adjusted it twice now. We think we have it now where we want to be, and so the plan from here is we're probably going to take 2 courses of siding most of the way around the house and make sure that we get all these measurements and dimensions checked and make sure that as we come around that we wind up meeting in the same point. Now, if we have to hide it, we have the option to hide it on the back corner where you're not necessarily going to be comparing the 2 walls, and if it is, it's going to be that neighbor way over there, and they may not see that the 2 corners don't exactly line up. There's a lot, I haven't seen too many houses where we do 100% cedar shake all the way around. Usually cedar shake is one of those accent pieces, and so to do a whole house in it is going to be a fun little adventure, and we want to make sure that we get it absolutely right. So we're going to take 2 courses all the way around. We're going to make sure that everything lines up, that we have it where we want it. And if we need to make any adjustments, with only 2 courses on, it's relatively easy to do that. If we did the whole front of the house, we'd really just be stuck with it. So to make sure that it's done right, it's coat built, we're going to take 2 courses all the way around. We're going to make sure our alignment is good, and then we can pick a side and start running up, up to the top. So that is sort of the plan going forward now. I realize it's a change from what we started, but in this business, you've learned to figure out when things don't quite go according to plan, or you find something that's not quite how you want it. How do we make those corrections and do it as cost effectively as possible and keep the project on track, on target, on budget, and moving forward? So that's sort of the plan going forward for that piece of things. So one other detail we'll get into, and that is the piece of coax that the guys ran up the outside of the house previously, and they just tucked it in the corner post. So what we decided that we're going to do, we still need to use it. We're not going to take up in the drywall to get behind things, but the guys did pull it over, and they've pushed it right into the joint where the 2 sheets of OSB come together. They've stapled it there all the way up, so it's in a safe spot where nails can't get to it. It's permanently back there. Once these corner posts go on, that it's not going to be risk of getting damaged or pulled out, and then we'll just sneak it across behind the siding where it comes in to the room upstairs. So that detail is going to get that hidden, so you don't have a piece of wire hanging out. You can kind of see it hanging out the side here. We want to eliminate that. We want to get rid of that so that you don't have that ugly sitting outside of the siding. So that's the update for today from New London, Pennsylvania. My name is Drew with 𝗂𝘁'𝘀 Construction and Renovation. We do it all: roofing, siding, windows, doors, decks, finish your basement, remodel your kitchen, renovate your bathroom, plumbing, electrical, drywall, spackle, paint, build you a custom dream home, an addition, a garage. Give our team a call. We have a dedicated office staff available weekdays, 9:30 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon at 484-748-0008. Choose option 2 for 𝗂𝘁'𝘀, your full service construction and renovation company, and extension 2 for new projects. We are Pennsylvania home improvement contractor number 88078. Remember, we're finished with it. You're proud to say it's not just done, it's 𝗂𝘁'𝘀. If you're watching on Facebook, we hope you'll like our page, follow our posts, see what's going on. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel, because we run lots of videos like this every week, and we're showing you the details of what goes in behind the construction process, putting your house together, so that it's not just done, it is 𝗂𝘁'𝘀, it is finished, it is done right. And we want you to have that information for a couple reasons. One, if you're doing DIY, that's great. You can understand some of these tips and tricks for how to do it yourself. And reason number 2, if you're interviewing a contractor to do work on your house, we want you to be able to ask the intelligent questions to find out if they know what they're doing. And if you have some of this research and some of the information that we're sharing with you of how it should be done and how to do it right, you can ask some leading questions of them and see if they know the right answers. And if they're giving you the right answers, then great. Maybe they're trustworthy and reliable, and you can hire them, check their background, get their insurance and paperwork checked out, call the references, look for pictures of prior work, reviews online, all those kind of things. But if they can't answer the basic questions about how do you flash a window, and they're not following the steps that we're talking about here from the latest in the building science projects, then maybe you need to move on and talk to somebody else. So we're hoping that you find this educational, you find this helpful. Hit that subscribe button and click that notifications bell so you get notified of all of our upcoming videos. And we will catch you on the next one. Thanks for joining us here on the channel. Thanks for watching with us here today. Leave a comment down below. Tell us what you learned. Ask us questions about your product. We'd love to hear from you down there in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye for now.